This show, I feel like, was so before its time. Like, no one's heard of it. No one watched it.
Yeah.
Netflix hardly advertised it.
This was by far the hardest character.
Hello and welcome.
Hi and welcome back to my channel.
I'm here today with my friend Lilla Crawford, who is an actor.
Yeah.
And
This is amazing. You don't understand, audience, how amazing this is. Because we've known each other for more than a decade, right?
Oh, yeah.
I feel bad for Danny. This editing is...
Danny is going to roast us for that. Danny's actually away on holiday, so you get to deal with me. Only don't worry, I'm not actually going to roast you because let me tell you, these natural fiber cotton sheets from Brooklinen are keeping me nice and warm on this cozy editing day without all of that roasting nonsense. What is Brooklinen, you might ask? I am 100% sure you did not just ask that aloud at your screen, but keep on sitting there staring at me as if I've sprouted another head because I'm going to tell you anyway. Brooklinen is a luxury bedding company creating high-quality home goods to elevate your home. With over 100,000 five-star reviews, these sheets don't just feel great, they look great too. After using these sheets myself for a bit over a year now, I can attest that they are so soft and luxurious. They do, in fact, have an array of colors and patterns and seasonal designs if you aren't plainer than wet bread like me. And instead of buying everything individually, you can save 25% on one of the hardcore bundles, which includes a sheet set, extra pillowcases, and a duvet cover. All, of course, from the comfort of your home. Right now, Brooklinen is having their Black Friday sale, and all Brooklinen items are up to 25% off through November the 29th. You can save up to 40% when buying their bundles, like the hardcore bedding bundle that I got, with their stackable Black Friday and bundle deals. This is your time to finally refresh your bedding or get a jump start on your holiday shopping during their largest sale of the year. So Lilla was on this little Netflix show called This Is the Who Was Show. Yeah. Would you like to explain what this show was?
It was a sketch comedy show on Netflix based off of the Who Was Show books, which I was obsessed with as a child. Did you ever read them when you were...
I didn't, but I remember them because you were reading them.
Yeah, I read them all the time. I think in total I played over like 50 characters. I think all six of us did.
I know you've done some like truly spectacular things in your career, but like this is like probably one of my favorite things that you've done.
I love that.
This show, I feel like, was so before its time. Like, no one's heard of it. No one watched it.
Yeah.
Netflix hardly advertised it for some stupid reason.
No, they didn't.
But, like, going back and watching it, I was like, this is so genuinely funny. Like, the meme, but it, like, it's almost trolling itself in a way.
I'm sorry. My bun is too tight.
I'm very genuinely excited. I mean, I have behind-the-scenes stuff to share.
So, the show, it obviously is based on historical figures, and it involves quite a bit of historical costuming. If we want to judge on historical accuracy, it's not there. There are some moments, there are some hilarious moments.
Yeah.
First of all, the show had no money, and I know that. Yeah. This show definitely made some really creative decisions on how they dealt with that no budget, and also because they were working with a younger audience, so there were some moments where you had to like raise necklines, which isn't historically accurate, and we can like discuss that.
Right. No, being friends with Bernadette for as many years as I have been, it's been ingrained in my brain what's historically accurate and what's not. So immediately, as soon as I got on this show and Bernadette came to visit set, I was like, okay.
We were texting this picture of this like 18th century gown.
Yeah. Shout out to the costume designer.
Shout out to the costume designer.
Jeannie
She worked with nothing.
She worked with nothing, and she was so excited. Like, she was so excited.
Yeah.
Just constantly every day. She's like, look at all the I mean, it's such a fun task for a costume designer to get to explore so many different time periods and also so many costumes. If 6 people are playing 50 characters, like, do the math.
As Hamlet, Romeo and Juliet, Macbeth.
No, not just a list. No offense.
The costume actually isn't that bad. Like, for a low budget like show, it's not that bad. The bottom half is trying to be a bit later Elizabethan, but the ruff has not been set, and you can tell. Because
what does that mean?
There are these figure of 8, patterns. See how it's been squished? Like it looks like accordion folded? That's because it's been laying flat and it hasn't been properly set.
What I also will say about costume, this is the same with hair and makeup. We had so little time to film so much content because it's a sketch show. So it's like so many costumes and so many characters. They would give almost no time for costume changes. I have this hilarious picture where I would have like Marie Antoinette's dress on, but then like Shakespeare's beard and mustache. I had to transition from William Shakespeare to Susan B. Anthony back to back. These costume changes, I mean, these poor makeup artist and they had no time. They had to rush. This facial hair, it's like glued on. And it's supposed to come off easy and be fine. Whatever he used, like my skin was like peeling off with the beard. And my skin was like, you could see like the underlayer of my skin. It was bright red. And I was just crying. I was in so much pain. My face was on fire. It felt like it was burning and it was just so irritated and bright red. That kind of stuff delays filming.
Right.
So I'm like sitting there crying. I look like I've, just put plutonium. What's Superman's stuff? Kryptonite. Is kryptonite buckets of chemicals? What's the thing in Lego Batman where there's green goo? I did the scene anyways as Susan B. Anthony, but they were trying to put makeup to cover
oh my God,
the
makes it
burns,
worse.
and it was burning even more. So then they gave up on the makeup. And they were just like, we'll just shoot you with your crazy face and like Photoshop it in post. That scene is not in the show. So your thing about like the setting the ruffles and everything like that, I think like you're, giving credit to like the budget that this woman was working with. I think it was like it's a time thing also.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
These ruffs take so long to set.
bet,
Like if they didn't have time, they didn't have time.
I need total concentration for this thumb stitch and victory.
I love how the default for like Renaissance clothing is velvet. Velvet is such an expensive fabric, especially like historically it would have been like silk fibers that you'd have to like cut to get that pile.
Really?
Yeah.
Romance, costume.
I thought I looked like the guy on the oatmeal with this costume. What's the Quaker Oats oatmeal? With this hairstyle and the hat.
I mean, it's roughly the same time period. Quaker Oats is dressed kind of early 17th
Quaker,
century, and this is, wow, that's actually a really...
Know the land, then covering up the...
I'm afraid they did not do suspenders in the 16th century.
Yes, suspenders. That's great.
As like oldie-timey as they feel.
Their eye-pleasing form.
He puts on the most modern leather glove.
Wait, what would a glove look like if this were accurate?
So they're very complicated. They're made with many different pieces. But you've got the hand piece, and then you've got separate like V-shaped pieces that go
and
they were
between.
stitched from the outside because you can't turn them, which a lot of
Right.
modern gloves are.
So the gloves, though, for this scene, most likely, probably positively were from props department.
Oh, absolutely,
And weren't from
yeah.
costume.
I'm out of business.
You're gonna lose
What's with that hat?
So
We were like, it looks like a pie. Like on set, we were like, it's a pie hat.
there is a type of hat that Henry VIII made it very popular. That sort of like flat cap. They weren't quite this like pie-like.
Kate Moss and like Naomi Campbell would like wear something crazy, and everyone would be like, okay, we're buying that tomorrow.
Oh,
Henry VIII
truly.
would be like, new hat, and
The
everybody would
royalty-
be like,
Yeah, we're getting that out tomorrow.
Royalty were totally the influencers of history for
Wow.
like most of history.
this was by far the hardest character, just because
Yeah.
like we had a lengthy rehearsal process, which definitely helped to solidify like, okay, what are we doing with these characters like before we just start shooting. And like I just couldn't get him right for whatever reason. The initial idea that I had for him was like Christian Borle in Something Rotten.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing that, and like
Yeah.
it wasn't working. Like I would lock myself in the bathroom and be like, what am I doing here? Like I can't do that. Like Shakespeare stressed me out.
It is I, Ronvolio. I wear a business suit, but look at me more closely. You'll see I have a fruit. Oh, banana.
This whole monologue is like banana situation. Like I remember like turning, like in between takes, like turning around and like wiping tears because I was just so embarrassed that I like could not get this right. You gotta have your lines memorized so that you don't like delay. I was pretty solid, and because I was solid every other time, this upcoming like Shakespeare, it's a parody of a Shakespeare monologue, and even a parody of a Shakespeare monologue was so difficult for me to remember. Basically, like they were just like, just roll, and like if you mess up, just start again from where you left off. And the edit, it turned out great.
Yeah.
It's probably was less worse than I'm remembering it, but in my memory, I imagine like a mortifying, like everybody's staring at me. Like, I keep messing up this monologue. I keep having to restart. God, I was so upset that I, like, couldn't get it right. What really, like, found the character, I think Shakespeare is just a theater nerd. Yeah. That's what they want. That's what, like, we landed on. Is, like, he just loves theater so much.
She's so small. She is so puffy. Look at you. Oh, baby.
The cutest little faces.
It's okay. It's okay.
Bonjour! Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
Oh,
Are we there
boy.
yet?
Any thoughts already?
So many thoughts. Okay, so first of all, the wig. They weren't white like that.
Oh.
So what the wigs were trying to do was emulate real hair, and the way that they would clean their hair in this period was not through water, but through powder and pomade. Just taking like an oil and like smoothing that to get the like dust and grease off, and then you were powdering it to absorb the oil. So that's why people had sort of like powdery, like faded, desaturated, often gray hair, but it wasn't white like this. So these guys in the short waistcoats, I don't know what's going on with them. They're not wearing their overcoats, which would have been like a at-home, like undress thing. Like, that's a bit strange. Earlier in the period, the waistcoats were really long. They went down to like the mid-thigh, and they started rising up. They only got that short, like closer to the 19th century. The guys in white, on the other hand, see, they've got like appropriate waistcoats, how long their waistcoats are.
I wonder if it was a choice on purpose to make them look different, or if it was just like, oh, we just have two sets of different ones. Like, is it historically accurate that like there would be different looks?
I think it's a logistical thing. I think they probably all should be wearing the same thing.
Right.
But they were only able to get,
Right.
and like I totally get that, of like if they're renting from TDF,
Right.
or like they only have access to like what they have in stock. Okay.
I know.
No, it's not bad.
Back in the day, I remember you being like,
Yeah.
this Marie Antoinette is a choice. I mean, it was so fun to wear.
Yeah.
It was so gorgeous, and it was elaborate. Like, I couldn't even sit down. Like, I couldn't sit down, really. I mean, if I sat down, the whole dress had to come up.
Was it not flexible? Historically, those would have been made out of whalebone, which is really flexible. It's like the consistency of your fingernail. So when you sit on it, it bends and it does collapse.
I just know that I have pictures of me, like...
Yeah, there are patents from this period of people inventing panniers that would hinge and could like fold up like this so you could get into carriages. Actually, the whole silhouette of this is actually pretty good. Like,
Ooh.
props to them. Like, they were working with what they had, and they definitely achieved the essence of the 18th century. They should have probably given you another petticoat or two, because you can see the ribs of the pannier. But I will make a comment, and your neckline is too high, and this is something that I noticed when you were texting me pictures from the fitting, in that it should be cutting off right at the top of your stays, which would have been cutting off here.
Right.
Were you wearing stays under that?
I thought stays meant boobs.
No, stays is the precursor to the corset.
I could have done
How
it.
have you known me?
I don't think I had a corset.
Really?
I don't think I remember having one.
Okay, well, they've got you into a good silhouette. If you've got boning in your bodice and they're pulling,
Yeah,
the
I think
bodice
that was
tight,
just
like you know, and you're already shaped like that, then
Yeah.
you'll be fine. Like, I can see why they went higher, because it's aimed at children, and you know they can't have too much décolletage. However, and this is something that I've seen done in several other shows, and that frustrates me so much, because there is a historically accurate way to solve that, in that they would wear these fichus, which are like very fine cotton. Sort of like not a shawl, but like kind of a shawl, like triangular pieces that could be tucked into the front here, that nobility were doing, lower class, everyone was doing it. When you
Yeah.
wanted a bit more modesty, because the dresses only came up to here, I can see that involves like a level of research that like maybe they didn't have
I know,
time
the
to do.
costume department, I'm pretty sure was one person. I'm pretty sure it was Jeannie. It was Jeannie and then like maybe like an assistant.
Yeah.
We had a real pug for most of the shots, but because, you know, that pug really didn't really much like being an actor, so if the dog like wasn't really featured in the shot, I would hold this.
I'm on my way to France to live in the Palace of Versailles.
So the bodice on this dress is a bit more Victorian than 18th century. The 18th century bodices were very close to the natural waist. So you can see, this is where your natural waist is. And this is how much room there is. The skirt would come all the way up to the natural waist.
That was so fun to wear, because
Yeah.
it was so elaborate.
Susan
So,
B. Anthony, oh my god, I'm excited for this.
are you really?
This is my favorite.
Your idea was voted down.
Okay. So, when I came to visit you on set, I think this
Yeah.
is before I knew that you were Susan B. Anthony. I just was like, oh, you're in period dress. Cool. I
Right.
thought you were playing an Edwardian, which is like 1901 to like
Right.
1910. Susan B. Anthony, and I think the period that they're trying to represent here specifically is like 1850s and 60s.
Right, it's when
Like
the vote happened.
half a century out of date. The hair is good. The hair is very mid-19th century. Fully believe it. Great.
Yeah.
But the dress is so Edwardian. The collar is actually quite good for the mid-19th century. But you've got your little puffy sleeves. There's no skirt support. She should have been wearing, if not a crinoline, like a cage crinoline, she should have been wearing a lot of petticoats to like make her dress a bit more fluffy.
I'm pretty sure none of this was custom. This was all rented pieces.
This looks rented. It's a beautiful dress, just not this period.
Right.
They don't have you in a corset for this.
Not at all.
Yeah, I can tell. You can get away with no corsetry in the Edwardian period because the bust is very low. In the mid-19th century, you're wearing a corset, your bust is pushed up. Like you gotta, like that's what the silhouette is. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
If the costume team was looking at pictures of Susan B. Anthony to create this outfit, what went wrong then? Or what was inaccurate? Not that it's wrong, but like...
Yeah, I think because a
historically
lot of
inaccurate.
portraiture of her is like from the waist up. The portrait of her does have this lace collar, so I can see how they would have gone,
got that.
you know, lace collar, this looks sort of similar, we can do this.
Pants! Before women started wearing pants, they wore bulky skirts that sometimes required them to wear over 7 pounds of underwear. Pants!
This is true.
Okay.
So,
Cool.
in the 1830s and 40s, women started wearing so many layers of petticoats to get that fluffy skirt that they became so heavy and cumbersome to move in. The solution to that, however, was not pants. It was the crinoline, that cage structure that held the dress out so you didn't have to wear all those petticoats. So, not quite yet.
Interesting.
In the 1850s, Susan B. Anthony started wearing ankle-length trousers called bloomers, and it...
Okay, this is true. She was one of the adopters of bloomers. However, it wasn't her. It's not even Amelia Bloomer who is the supposed inventor of bloomers. It's Elizabeth Smith Miller, who was part of their circle. I think she was a contributor to The Lily, which is the magazine that Amelia Bloomer edited for. And Amelia Bloomer was a champion of this new style of like rational dress for women, these bloomers. They became called bloomers because they were mentioned so frequently in Amelia Bloomer's magazine, but Amelia Bloomer didn't start wearing them. She only just published the articles. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton eventually adopted them as well. So they were public figures wearing this rational dress. They were highly mocked for it, but she wasn't the inventor, the pioneer of bloomers on American women.
Dang. This was a lot of pieces.
It looks like a lot of pieces, but you've got pearls, which is good.
Yeah.
You've got a farthingale, which is good.
This, I remember being extremely long. Look how long, like, this shape is.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, especially by the end of the period, the bodice shape gets really long.
Yeah.
And it's still cut at the waist here, so it comes here, and because it curves down so deeply, it makes that front bodice look even longer than it is.
This...
Oh my god, no. No, nothing about this entire outfit. Just no. This is giving like storybook, like medieval fantasy princess.
Yeah. What about the, these talking heads?
So the guy on the left,
Right.
like his ruff just looks like it has been dragged along with the head, which is actually better. Because that I believe, like,
it's a chopped off head.
Yeah, if your ruff isn't perfect, like having it like going in all sorts of ways is actually more believable than this like accordion folded that these other two have that like just look like they've been folded up and set in a bin for
Which
like however many years, which like is not as like story-wise believable. Like either set the ruff or drag them through the mud and like crumple them up and you know.
Crazy that I got to be
I wonder if there's a better...
Oh my god, there's so many different periods going on here. Okay, so the man is in very short pumpkin trunks.
Yes.
Which is quite good.
Okay.
Except that's very sort of mid to early 16th century. You are dressed very late 16th century. The woman on the right is wearing a pair of 18th century, looks like 18th century stays. The woman on the right looks Italian Renaissance.
Welcome to my dressing room. As queen, I've become quite the fashion icon. This is a bodice.
Okay. Queen Elizabeth was wearing what was called a pair of bodies, which is where we get the term bodice from. That was not common. Especially, really, we only start to see evidence of it from the end of the 16th century. Most people were wearing kirtles, which are like stiffened, like heavily starched pieces of linen that are just tightly worn. But Queen Elizabeth, we have evidence of her wearing this pair of bodies, which is like the precursor to the stays, precursor to the corset. I totally get why they're not going into this, because it is confusing and it's very niche historical.
Yeah.
It was not steel. They were not steel. There are evidence of these steel bodices, which are thought there are two schools of thought here, either to be medical devices. First of all, there are so few of them in existence, and they're metal, they don't degrade. If everyone wore these, even if all the royalty wore these, there would be more of them surviving. Either they were medical devices for like spinal correction, or they're fetish devices.
Yeah.
Fetish garments.
Yeah.
What Queen Elizabeth would have been wearing is a pair of bodies. So it's heavily boned, made with whalebone or reed, heavyweight linen. The skirt, I don't know what's going on with the skirt. It looks like a corded petticoat from the 1830s.
Yeah. This is like the animators, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't even costume design.
Yeah.
Gives a woman a tiny waist and roughly 2 to 12 crushed ribs. This is a farthingale.
No.
What?
The fashion of this, you were. So the way you achieve a tiny waist in this period is by wearing an enormous skirt and giant sleeves. That's what made the waist look tiny. People weren't cinching themselves and breaking their ribs.
This is a farthingale, but I call it a fartingale, as it cages my royal farts.
What they're putting on her is not a farthingale, it's a pannier, which is the 18th century version
Yeah.
of it. A farthingale was more conically shaped. At least in the 1560s, like middle of the century, it was cone-shaped. It was a series of like concentric circles of reed, which were all bundled together. So it's very flexible, very lightweight. The French farthingale, which came into fashion at the end of the century, was more of just like a disc that you wore around. Again, we don't know if it's reed or if it's whalebone that you would wear around your waist, so the skirt came out and straight down.
I mean...
This is such a good show. It's such an underrated show.
Thank you. I would love to do another period piece again, because just as an actor, I mean, I am not the expert in historical dress, but from an actor's perspective, it is so much fun to wear fun clothes.
Oh my god, talk about wearing period clothes.
I mean,
like,
I guess...
were any of these costumes, like, uncomfortable?
There was never, like, pain. There was never, like, uncomfort to the point of, like, get me out of this or else. But, like, the Marie Antoinette one, like, I think I mentioned earlier, like, I would come to set with bloomers, and then they would put the skirt on, like, at the last minute, because if I remember correctly, I couldn't sit in it. It's definitely just, like, I just feel this way about, like, makeup and fancy clothes. There's nothing like lounging in sweatpants. Like, that's the ultimate comfort. There's something, like, you know, when you're wearing a gigantic Marie Antoinette dress, it's like, this is not me. Like, this is a costume. Like, the worst was the facial hair. So I would say Shakespeare and wigs. That's actually the pain. That was the most pain out of any costume. It wasn't, that wig was so heavy. I don't know, just like layers in general is like kind of like, oh my god, I'm wearing so many clothes. But I will forever love it. I love dressing up, and I love wearing like fabulous clothes.
What was your favorite costume to wear?
I think Marie Antoinette was the most, like, even though the wig was so heavy, like, it was just like a spectacle. I love being a spectacle. Like,
this one costume designer had to do every time period,
that's what I'm
every
saying.
geographical location.
Yeah.
So, like, inaccuracies are bound to happen just because of the scope of...
Also, just the person that they hired is not a costume historian, but she was so enthusiastic, and she put, like, her all into this because what a challenge. Like, she just was like, oh my god.
Definitely, like, the primary skill would be working quickly and being very on your toes.
Was a lot of it. Yeah.
Which, like, if she's super skilled at, they're going to hire her over someone who, like, knows the history really well, but going to spend, like, 4 weeks building one super historically accurate Queen Elizabeth gown. Like, there's no point because no one else is going to have clothes.
I mean, that was so fun. What a trip down memory lane.
Yeah. Now we reach the awkward point of having to end a YouTube video.
Yeah.
We should go eat some cake.
I would love some cake.
Okay, we're going to go eat some cake. Bye.
Bye.
See, the trouble is, I'm never getting up now. Thank you, Brooklyn, for sponsoring this video. Do visit the link down below to learn more. You're like sitting all nicely, and I'm just like uncouth.
I remember one tidbit.
Sorry.
Oh
Yeah.
Great prop. I love that I still have this.
I love that you have that.
Yeah. Do you not do like link in the description, follow me below?
No, because like no
comment,
one cares.
subscribe. Some people have memorized intros and outros.
Yeah, but like y'all know what to do. You're intelligent people. You can figure out like if you want these videos in your subscription feed.